Hey everybody, what up? All right, so in this video, we're looking at Python's Litestar framework, and this is for building web APIs with Python. It looks pretty cool. I hear a lot about it, and this video is just going to be quickly how to get started with it on the fly. So I have no experience with it, but I'm just going to take a look and see how quickly I can get up and running with it. So you can see it has a lot of plugins and a lot of features that right out of the box. So from what I understand, reading the documentation, it is opinionated. So that can be good. Python has a Pythonic way of typically doing something. So having a web framework with a Pythonic way of doing it is good. It's bad when you really want to start customizing it and you find out you can't, but it's also good because typically it's a tried and true standard, and there's the way that they solve the problem is a good way to solve it. So let's just jump into this. So obviously you need Python installed. I have Python 3.11. That seems kind of outdated. What is the latest version these days? 3.12. All right, so we're pretty close. So I'm just gonna go with what I got. So one thing to note, this is an ASCII framework, which means that it supports asynchronous behavior. This is a successor to WSGI, and WSGI is how I used to set up all my, like when I was using Apache or Nginx, I would just have to install modules in order for Apache to understand Python. So I'm going to go ahead and install Litestar with pip. And this is Windows flagging my pip, most likely. Sometimes when I try to use this, like Windows will flag it. All right, cool. Now it's installed. All right, so I'm going to use VS Code for my editor. I created a tutorials folder. I'm going to put the project in this Hello Litestar. We're going to copy this starter code. And you can see it's a file named app.py or py. All right, so there's two options to run it here. So there's Litestar Run, or then it's Uvicorn that you can use. And this is the Uvicorn project. So it's ASCII implementation for Python. We're going to go ahead and do the run for now. So go to View, Terminal, and I'll probably PowerShell should be fine. I'm on a Windows machine, unfortunately. All right, so Uvicorn is not installed, so you have to install it apparently. So that means we're going to say pip install Uvicorn. All right, we'll run our command again to run Litestar. All right, you can see it spun up a localhost 8000 port, and then here's hello world. So just that quickly, we're able to get up and running with Litestar. All right, so looking at the methods here, the API methods, you have a function here, get book, and this is the route. So you're going to say /books, and then you're going to pass in a book ID, which clearly is an integer, and it's you then could query a database or whatever you might do on your server side for the integer that you're passing to the endpoint. So we're just going to test that real quick. So it's like book. So you got a 404 there, so it's probably books, right? Yeah, there it goes. So it's passing back the ID, which this is a parameter argument or parameter value that you're passing via the URL. All right, so it's pretty cool also that this thing comes with automatic documentation. So if you use Swagger or something like that, then this is going to automatically document your API endpoints. So you can see you get this nice little user look and feel to test out your API endpoints with a graphical user interface. And this is based on the open API specification. So typically that is, not typically, but everybody uses this as a API specification for the way that your API should function when you're talking about RESTful services. So you have an option for the schema. There's also Swagger for people that are familiar with that. This is something that I've used before. And then according to the documentation, you also have stoplight elements and RapidDoc, and I haven't used either one of those two as far as I know. All right, so this is talking about defining a model class, and this is a user, has first name, last name, and then an ID, and this is a unique user ID, UUID. And you can see that it's actually defining the type that first name and last name is, which are both strings, and the ID is the UID. It's using Pydantic. Pydantic is a widely used data validation library for Python. So we should probably go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to copy this. So I'll create a folder here called models. I guess we'll just call this user.py. You can see from Pydantic it's saying that it could not be found. We probably need to do a pip install. You can press plus to do another terminal. And now we've installed Pydantic. And the squigglies go away. So this is giving another example. You can use data classes. We'll just go ahead with the first method that we've already done. Down here we can go ahead and define our controller. So I'll copy all this. I don't know if I'm doing the right method of like user py or anything. I haven't used Python in quite some time. So you can see from my app model, so we need to fix our import here. And this actually says user, so I should have probably read ahead, but we have my app.models, but it's actually, so we need to go into the models folder, and then we're saying user. So that'll work. So my app is not actually needed. It's just, we could just say models user. So that's importing that. And again, I'm not really sure. I probably should have checked out the typical data or file structure of a Litestar app before doing this, but whatever. All right, so now we have down here, it says from Litestar import Litestar. So we're actually needing to update our app.py file. I'm just going to copy this up here. So we don't need to do that again. And really, I can get rid of my app. And then here you can see this is where it says app index get book, and then I guess this is just assigning it. I don't know if I should do this before or after the methods here. We'll figure it out later. All right, so we're going to run this command now. So with the reload, I'm assuming that adds hot reloading. So anytime you change your source code, it's going to go ahead and automatically compile again. So no module my found name app, my app. So this thing, we clearly didn't call it my app. And really it's called, I probably should have said hello Litestar maybe. No, I can't find that either. All right, so I don't really know the proper naming conventions here. All right, so looking at this, I think we just need to okay, so now we have a different thing that we can't find. Cannot import name partial user DTO. So that stands for a data transfer object. Partial user DTO. So going back to the docs, I guess we needed the second part here in order for this to work. They should be a little bit more clear about that. So I'll just replace this whole file. All right, so you can see you do get hot reloading. Now we're getting can import name user controller from controllers.user. So controllers.user. Oh shit, I just pasted this into the wrong thing. That's why that ain't working. That needs to go into the model. All right, so now we have a main app not found module app. So I was thinking of, because we call it app.py, I thought that that might work, and apparently it doesn't. Press Control C, I believe, to kill this. It's not responding. Interesting. So Visual Studio Code with Python is not installing, so you could always just kill the terminal. Hopefully that doesn't leave the port open. All right, so I guess because I don't have this defined as a Python module, it's when we're using Uvicorn, it's actually expecting this to be a module with the proper, probably init py files and such, but we'll just go with the original Litestar run. So that does seem to work. So that's not found. Let me see what my routes look like. So it's users. So you have all these different CRUD endpoints, create, read, update, delete. So patch is update, and so is put. Get, and then you have post up here. So let's change the post here. We're just going to print what is passed as a data object. So when you're testing APIs, it's a good idea to go ahead and have something like postman. So you can see that if I post to the user's path here, that it's going to expect a data object which consists of a user. So if we go to the type definition here, you're going to need to pass a first name, a last name, and a UUID. A lot of times this will be generated on by the database. And then if we hit this point successfully, we're just going to print this out, and it's going to print to the console here. So I'm going to use Postman to do that. And Postman, you can just go to your collections. You can create a workspace if you want. I'm not going to deal with that right now. Just press the plus button, and here you can change this to a post. Or localhost, I think it's 8,000 users. And then we'll have to pass a data object. So one of them is first. First name, last name. Trying to make this bigger so everybody can see it. So what I'm providing is a JSON data object that has the data that the server expects. This should just be called ID, I believe. We're going to pass whatever. This should be a valid UUID though, so it's probably going to fail. I'm going to grab a UUID from the internet. Hopefully this matches what Python's looking for. I don't want to save this. Cancel. I used to press send. I get 404 not found, so it's not hitting the server at all. And that's because I have this thing too zoomed in. So those are, so this is the port here. That should work. All right, so clearly I'm not hitting the URL correctly at all. I don't know if this is working. So where is path actually being used? That would explain it. Let me just, I'm going to manually do that. You know what? Screw it. I'll just say that this is path. And just to be safe. Still getting 404. So clearly I think one of the problems here is that we have this code down here at the bottom. And I want to restart. So now we're getting a 405 method not allowed. So that's progress. So that means it did hit our server. So now you can see it hit our server. So what was going on there is that I had this in here from the previous example. And then once we added our controller example with our user controller, basically it was all that was being overwritten when we redefined the app down here. All right, so the 405 method not allowed, I'm trying to pass some application JSON on the body. And the endpoint's being hit. And most likely it's a header issue. So like we need to say accept really there's no headers at all on this thing, but for sure we need to say the content type is application JSON. All right, for right now, let's just make sure that this actually works here, the get. So the endpoint's going to be what I find interesting is that it defines the path here. Like this, I feel like this didn't give a good enough example. All right, let's try this. So, all right, so this is a little painful, but I think it's best to then just use Swagger here because it already has what we're trying to do. So it's users. Interesting. All right, so here you can say try it out. You can say execute. And we get a 201 null body, which is fine, but the question is, did it hit our test? There it is. Wait, no, it's not. So that's doing the post. That makes sense. Remember, we were just printing out the data, so that actually is working. So it hits the post there, but I'm curious with Postman. Let me compare that to Swagger. So you can see it's users. Interesting. So if I wanted to do this with Postman, and then we didn't post the body correctly. Let me see what the Swagger looks like. So there's different types of UUIDs. This is still going to return null though, no matter what. So this might have actually worked. Yeah, it did. So now Postman is hitting it. And just to make sure, we'll do this one more time. So the server's returning null, but you can see now we're hitting it actually with both Swagger. But yeah, that's actually great that it comes with that documentation to tell you how to actually hit your API. So that makes me think though, setting the path here. So it was users. Or users. So really, I didn't need this at all. And I don't need this. So if I update that, it's still users, which is interesting. All right, so going back to Swagger, I'll try the get endpoint. So it does validation, so it has to be a GUID. I'm going to use the one that I got from the internet and see if this works. And it does. And now you get the print message, did this work? So you may be wondering why you would do that if you're like new to web development, but you're creating an entire API for just dealing with users. So when you're dealing with users, if you're going to create a new user, you're going to post that user data. Again, I don't think you would post a UUID that would probably be generated by the database itself. But you're going to post whatever user data you need. So they fill out a form, their first name, their last name, and you're going to do the post endpoint. And typically use post when you're going to be storing or changing data. And then the get would be this is going to simply get all the users. So this is where you would query your user database and return all users, which clearly would be a security concern. You wouldn't want to show other people's users to, the outside world. But it's just an example. And then patch, you're making an update to an existing user. So again, you're going to pass like first name, they update their username or something like that. And then you're going to have get, and get is just simply going to return their stuff. So they log in and you're showing a profile page. You're going to retrieve that user's data via their user ID. And that's going to return like their profile pic and any other information you might have for them. And then if you want to delete that user, you're going to call this endpoint. So clearly all this stuff should happen behind authentication. All right, now let's look at how we could actually get this to return like HTML templating. And we're going to try to use Jinja, which it's not included in this project out of the box because they're trying to keep it lightweight. But let's pip install Litestar Jinja. And then we need to modify the app. So app.py. And we're going to add a template config to this. So put route handlers on its own line. And we're going to paste in this template config. And it says that there's a path called templates. So clearly we need to create a folder called templates. Okay. So this directory could be called whatever you want, but typically it's called templates. We also have a typo here. We're going to need another. Oh, duh. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually missing a comma here. All right, so because we're using this stuff with the squigglies, we need to actually import it. So we're going to import both of these from Litestar. And then we also need path, so we'll grab that from pathlib. It's been a long time since I've used Jinja, but this is the template. We just want to, it's basically to render straight HTML. All right, so what we want to do is have this thing return on the home page instead of hello world. We want this to return the template, and we're going to go ahead and create that now. So I'm pasting this in from the documentation. I'll make this a little smaller so you guys can see the whole thing. So clearly we need template, and that should be Litestar response. So we're returning a template response. And then the template is hello html.jinja2. Is that really what it's called? So we're going to create that file. Yeah, apparently it is. Type HTML. Oh, so the editor doesn't know about it. So now we have to actually write out our HTML. We're just going to do this manually real quick. Oh, this isn't working at all. Is there a Jinja plugin? I mean, there's 8 million downloads, not very highly rated, but whatever. This has 8 million and this has 694,000, although much higher ratings. So who knows? We're going to go with the older one first. But sadly, it still doesn't provide highlighting or anything. Yeah, this thing sucks. Let's try this one. Yeah, it's working now. So if that works, can I do what I normally do, which is type HTML? Nope, that part doesn't work. Normally, if you just type HTML, it'll just create the whole template for you. So we're defining an HTML page. I don't like how it doesn't have formatting. We need a... You could just, if you have Prettier installed, just go to like format selection. You could do that, or you could do format with. It's not letting me do format with. All right, whatever. All right, so I think if I select all this and do Shift Alt F for format, you can see it does format where it thinks it needs to. I don't like how it's not formatting head. Maybe that's not the proper way you format it. I don't even remember. But whatever. All right, because we modified the app, I'm assuming we're going to have to restart the server. Actually, look, this is saying that it's /template string, template type string. All right, one thing I don't like is that anytime you're defining your app like this, I feel like this should be done at the bottom. After all your routes and everything. And then you can also see that like where we're having our route handlers, we only have the user defined. So this is a list, so we can pass index. I believe that might work. And I think, again, I don't know if the auto reload is going to work if we're updating some of this core app stuff. I would assume it doesn't, but I'm not 100% sure. So again, this isn't finding anything. Oh, okay, status code form missing required query parameter and name. Name. So that is because this. It's a file. Context name. So name equals name. So I gotta actually pass the name. Okay. No. So I mean, what the fuck? So name is the first argument. I'll be honest. I mean, I'm coming from a lot of Node and stuff, and this looks a little weird to me. All right, so I'm assuming then I have to pass. You wouldn't possibly have to do that. Hello.html. Man, I don't fucking know. So I guess what I don't understand about this is like we were getting the error that it wants like this template type string and you could get this, right? But that doesn't make any sense to me really. So if it's a file, it's like, hey, I want hello.html. But that gets not found. Do I really have to put a name? That can't possibly be. Like this works, that can't possibly be the route. So if I were to say template type file and name equals hello, then that returns the HTML, but why would my route look like that? All right, so that is weird. So maybe it's just simply for documentation purposes, but that wasn't clear to me at all. Like, hey, you could do two different things, and here's a bunch of weirdness. But in this case, I won't do template type or any of this stuff. I'll just return what we want. So if you have the /, we don't need template type. You could pass name, and it'll turn it to the context. So, okay, let's see if that works. So it still wants, it says it's required, so I don't want it to be required. It's so weird seeing Python with types now, man. That's something I'm not used to at all either. It's been a while since I've had to deal with this. In fact, I've never actually used Python with types. So my guess is going to be pipe sign none. If I want this to be optional. That is so weird to me. So Python is a dynamically interpreted duck type language, and what you have here is type safety, which isn't known for Python, but I guess it's now picking up steam since everything seems to be type safe. Dude, I've never even used this with Python before, but I don't like it. I used to like the freeform way, so I guess maybe optional. Is that the PEP way of doing this? Oh, that's not defined. Ugh, I really hate this. Bullshit. Okay, so you can either pass name or you don't. So that didn't work either. All right, so what I need to do is go back, and it does have this in the documentation, but if I just define just an empty string, that should possibly work. No, it still doesn't. Anyway, the bottom line is that it wants you to pass a query string parameter of name. And that doesn't work either. Oh, missing query. So, oh shit. Oh shit, this has probably been working the whole time. I think I need to restart the server. Damn. Damn, son. That shit worked the whole time. All right, so the reload isn't working. Okay, let's try to solve that. All right. Goddamn. All right. Let me, yeah. All right. Anyway, so this is how you define it. Like if I wanted a default, if I didn't want to pass Chris, I could have that in there. And now the restart is working too. So sorry about that. This is why we're learning on the fly. I do think their documentation could use a little bit of examples though, like a little bit better, because that was crazy. All right. So now that we have our templates working, what I want to do is show you the context. So you can see the context gets passed to the server. So we have this name. So if you wanted to actually use this here, I could do like plus, and then I could say name. And I think this is the Django way with one bracket. Django uses two. No, yeah, that's not going to work. All right, so maybe it's 2. Yeah, there it is. All right, so that's how you're passing data to your template. And then if you want this to be dynamic, you could be like name equals dynamic. And then you can see it updates. So we defined a default value name of Chris, so you didn't have to pass it as a query string. But you could also pass it as a query string and have dynamic data rendered via the template. So a lot of times what you're going to do too is like you would query your database, and let's pretend like you have like a data object equals, and really with Python, I think we want to do snake casing with Python. So we'll say like data object equals, pretend it's like a movie. So we'll have like a title, my movie. Actually, you know a great movie I was watching the other day, Cedar Rapids. I recommend that movie. It's pretty funny, I thought. Man, I'm rusty. I haven't used Python in a long time. All right, so we're defining this data object, and I'm just calling it data object, but you can pass like multiple values here. So data object equals data object. And then now if I were going to go ahead and render that in the template, pretend this is like some sort of movie template. So you can render the data object title, and then we have a rating. And you get a 500. It no like that. It's because of my syntax. This needs to be a string. And you're assigning the string value to the data object. All right, so you can see like Cedar Rapids, rated R. So we want to make this look more like an actual real website. We'll add a few more data values here. And this is a link to the image on the web. We need a comma here. Then we can do the trailer. So for the trailer part, I will just paste in the iframe. And you can just use this link here. And then you reference this data object dot title, or wait, dot trailer. And when you're doing this, when you're assigning attribute values, you definitely don't need the, at least I don't think so anyway. It's a good question. How do you bind that? Either way, the syntax, if this works, the syntax highlighting is not working. Yeah, and it does work. So that sucks. Clearly the Genja 2 syntax highlighting is kind of causing like an issue here, but all right, so that still works. So if you wanted the syntax highlighting, you could actually have this be in double quotes, so that wasn't a problem. Genja 2 will pick up on the double curly brace syntax and inject whatever data it needs. So our image is not showing up because our image is not rendered, so you would just define an image here. provide the alt tag, so that helps people that are blind, they understand what this is. Then we can close off our image shorthand. Nothing is huge. But now that we have that, I think the next thing is like, how do you quickly get static content involved in this thing? All right, so it looks like we can use the static file handler that's built in. So we would modify where we have our template engine. Not there. Here. No, not there. Here. So we're pasting in the location of the static files here. And this could be helpful for like when you define, like, so Jinja 2 is actually slow because it's a template engine and it has to deal with stuff like injecting data. But a lot of times, like, you could have just static content that's static HTML and obviously CSS, JavaScript, and images. So what this is saying is that it's going to serve these directories that we've listed. So one of them being static, and then static is a good location to put like a JS folder, image folder, and a CSS folder. And then we're going to create another folder for the HTML, and this is where you could have like static HTML. So we'll just like, we'll create a file here like my static HTML.html. And here we can click HTML5, static page example. This is a static HTML page that does not need a template engine to render. All right, so now what I'm going to do is create some static files. So we're going to have like main.css, and we'll style the h1. I always kind of do this just as a quick and dirty to see if it's actually working. We don't have any images right now, but we can also create a JS file. So like main.js. Normally you're going to have a bundle file if you're going to use React or Lit or Vue or Angular. Okay, so now that we have that configured, we should be able to load our CSS. So say link relation equal style sheet href point to the static folder. So most likely I should just have to do static CSS main.css, and then you can close that off shorthand as well. All right, so if everything goes well and we navigate to this static directory, it should be pulling the static CSS file, and this h1 should be a color of red. So pulling up our browser, I'm just going to use a new tab here. And this is going to be, so we just have to say like HTML, my static, what did we call it? Shit. My static HTML.html. All right, so you can see that this is a static page and our static content is not found. So we're getting a 404 on our main.css, so that's not finding it. Okay. Oh, I can see what's going on. So you can see when we requested my static HTML, we don't actually need the static. It's going to just automatically look in these static folders for any matching one. Psych. All right, I want to see if this will work from our main template page in Jinja. So pull up the Gingen template and the head. We're going to add the link to the style sheet. Still doesn't work. So it's probably something all jacked up here. Just want to make sure this won't work either. And it doesn't. Oh, I think I see what's going on here. Oh, damn it. We have the path as file. Son of a bitch. It should be static. So now both of them will probably work. There's that one. And then this one needs the static directory back in it. So you'd have to specify static so it knows. It's not going to guess and like iterate every directory. All right, cool. So in the same way you have that, you would also have JavaScript and either the template, whether you're using Jinja template engine or something else, but like you would just link to it in the same way. Static, JS, main.js. And I can do that from the Jinja template as well. Except it's not working. That one works. My statics, something's wrong here. So that one works. Script source. Do I have a bug? Script source. Oh, I didn't save the file. All right, so then you render JavaScript. So yeah, I mean, overall, I'd say that like I like this engine. I mean, it's built for HTMX, so if you ever wanted to implement something like that, if you're going to connect to your database, you're going to do a view your controllers and have your models and such to save the proper data structures. You have your built-in API documentation for how to use the API. You have your static handlers, so you could have static CSS images, JavaScript. You could have static HTML, so if you had to just wanted to write your straight HTML blogs or whatever, you could do that. And yeah, I don't know that I need to make this any more complicated. Yeah, so as far as this is concerned, I'm just going to end the tutorial now. This was just on the fly, learning how to use this project. I do like it. I think it definitely has potential. I like the minimalist nature of it. Also the fact that it has pretty much everything you need, like Flask or Django. There's a whole lot more that I didn't cover according to this documentation, like a ton, including WebSockets and other things. And those would probably all be separate videos in their own right, but I'll update this to GitHub if anybody's interested in pulling this thing down. But it's certainly enough to build any sort of standard web page, like for most websites out there for sure. And then if you wanted to use like React or something like that, you're just simply going to create your bundle files and write them to this JS and have a separate folder for dealing with your UI. And yeah, other than that, I think that this definitely looks like a promising web framework from Python. If you're learning to code, I recommend you check out my website, codehawk.com. My courses are fast, to the point, without the fluff that you'll find on other competitor sites like Pluralsight and Udemy. One of the reasons why you'll want to learn with me is that I'm a self-taught engineer myself. I never went to school for any of this stuff. I've been doing it for over a decade now professionally. The biggest reason you should use CodeHawk is that it's one price for everything. I try to make this as affordable as possible. Instead of having to purchase 15 to 20 different courses on Udemy or an expensive monthly subscription to Pluralsight, it's one price for everything on CodeHawk. Front end, back end, full stack. It has courses on all the latest web development technology. The courses range from beginner to advanced. So if you want to learn the latest web technology, give CodeHawk a look. There's demos for all of the courses that are out there right now. In addition, there's also my personal vlogs, which I'll be adding more to. So content that I don't release to YouTube is available on CodeHawk.